So here in this drawing, I'm just going to create another sketch on top of this. And maybe for that, I'll use a hexagon and I'll just make it randomly like so. All right, let's use the dimensioning and I'll just use a completely random dimension for this one. All right, let's exit out of this and I'll create the extruded cut feature here. So extruded cut, and the depth, I'm once again going to define it using the depth feature. So global variable and depth, and that's defined. Now let's add a fillet. So I'll go to fillet and right on this edge, I'm going to add a fillet of radius 5 and tab key. Click OK, and the fillet is also defined. So now we have, well, these two features which are defined, and for these two features, I have used simple dimensions. I'm not using any global variable for this radius or the radius of this circle, which is used for making this hexagon. Now, even in this case, you can link these two properties, the radius of this fillet or the radius or the diameter of this circle, with other features. Now, if you remember here also for making the circle, we did not use any global variable. So now even after making it, let's link these two features together. And to do that, you need to first go to this annotation option, this folder, right click and activate show feature dimension. Now that's going to show all the feature dimensions that we have applied here, including all the equations. So as you can see, this one is an equation, which is the fillet radius. Then we have this 2.4, which is not an equation as we don't have any equation sign, but everything else here is an equation. So all these values are equations. But now here, if I just pull it out like this one, that's an equation. But this radius, as you can see, the fillet radius is not an equation. And so is the case with this one. This circle radius is not an equation. Now let's link these two. As you can see, this is 2.4 and this also happens to be 2.4, which is quite equal, but still they are not linked. If I change any one of these parameters, it's not going to change the second one. So let's try doing that. Let's try linking it. Now to link this, all you need to do is just right click and select link values. Now you need to give it a name. So in this case, I'm going to call it circle dia, and with that just click OK. So now it's a linked value. This small chain link icon will show up right next to this dimension. Since we have created this linked parameter, now you can assign this to another feature. Now it is also added as a global variable. So if I now go to tools, equations, it's added inside our global variable list as a global variable. So let's click OK. And now let's use this global variable to define this radius. So here I'll just double click, I'll just press equal sign, global variable, and now here we have it, this global variable, which we defined using link dimension. So circle dia and just click OK. All right, now these two are linked, but there is a difference. In this case, we have this chain link icon, but here we have this equation icon, which means you can change this parameter, but not this one. So if you want to change the value, you can double click here and you can change it right here. So for example, it is 2.4. Let's just make it 1.8. Click OK. And now this as well as this will change. So I'll just rebuild this complete drawing and here we are. It is 1.8 and so is this. If however you try changing this one, it's not going to change. So if I just double click here and if I let's say make it 2.2 and click OK, it may look like it has changed here, but just rebuild this document and it is back to default value of 1.8. So this value cannot be defined either from equation, because it is completely grayed out here. As you can see, you cannot just change it, or from here. You can only change this value from this linked dimension. So if you want to change this exact value, then you need to just do it here. But you can always link the same value to several other features. For example, for this fillet also, let's say we want to use the same value, or maybe we just want to use an equation. So for that, you can double click here and you can define it using a formula. For example, here I'll type equal, and now you just need to select all the dimensions. So equal, and then I'm going to click here. Now that's going to select whatever the dimension is defined here. So circle dia, that's the global variable. the linked one, which is selected, and let's say multiplied by 2. That's what we want. So it will automatically calculate the value, whatever the value is, and it's going to apply that value for its radius. So just click OK and rebuild this. And here we are. So it is 3.6. So it just calculated the final value and it will show it here. Now, if I change this value, if I make it 1.6, it will change all the linked parameter everywhere. So again, I'll rebuild this. It's 1.6 and so is this. It's 3.2. So in this way, you can create equations and global variables. Now, finally, let's talk about feature suppression. And for that, we have already created a hole and a fillet. Now, let's go to Tools and Equations. And here we have feature. So just click here and select the feature which you may want to suppress. So in this case, I'll now click on this fillet. And here inside global variable, we have an option of suppressing or unsuppressing it. So I'm going to select suppress. Now click OK, and the feature will be suppressed. You can also select several other features here. So here I'll just click inside this second row and maybe I'll just select this hole here. So I'll just zoom in just to select it. Here, cut extrude feature is selected, global variable, and I'll select suppress. Click OK, and now the feature is gone. So with that, just click OK, and here we are. So the feature is still available. As you can see in the feature tree also, the feature is showing up here, but still it won't show up here. Now to unsuppress it, you can go to Equations, Tools and Equations, and then from here, simply go to this option and change it from suppressed to unsuppressed. So go to global variable and select unsuppress, just click OK. And it's back again. You can also unsuppress this if you want. Now all the features as well as linked values and equations are added inside this equation folder in the feature tree. So you can just expand it and here it's going to show every single property here. Now, if you want to manage it, you can right click and go to manage equation, and that's going to again take you to equation, global variable and dimension. So you can just modify it from here simply by right clicking on the feature tree as well. So I'll just close it and refresh the drawing, and that's global variable, equation and linked values.